What's up, COD fans? Welcome back. I'm IHOLDSHIFT, dealing with more off-season 2020 Rostermania stuff. Now, this is not exactly new news, but I want to bring some clarity because it seems like people are still a little bit confused as far as what's going on with the London Royal Ravens, a team that came out of nowhere, surprised everybody to finish top 4 at the CDL playoffs, has apparently, at least by most people's thoughts, sold the entire team off. That's not true. Not exactly the case. I need to remind you guys of some things that are going on in the important date factor of things coming up for all of the off-season Rostermania stuff. September the 6th is the first big date that's coming up for us. That's the date in which if teams would like to sign or extend options for current players into the 2021 season, they have to do that by. If they do not, then there is that period where there's going to be negotiation. And then by September the 13th, if there's no conclusion to current players being signed, that is when everybody will go to a free agent status. What we don't know is, are they going to be going to unrestricted or restricted free agencies? The difference being unrestricted, you have no ties whatsoever to the team from the last year. You don't have any kind of buyout or anything like that. You just can go wherever teams make offers to you and you accept. If you are a restricted free agent, it means that you are still technically tied to a team, and any other team that would like to have the option into investing into you would have to buy out a portion of your previous contract. That's what things like Clayster are currently on, because apparently Clayster had actually tied into a second-year option where the team could potentially choose whether or not they wanted to keep him or not. So a little bit blindsided by what's going on in Dallas was Clayster in that instance. But for London, the news that initially broke was that Wuskins had been dropped, and then following that, Skrapz apparently as well was dropped from the London Royal Ravens. That was not the case. Essentially what was going on was London was expressing the opportunity for new contracts, and players would have then the option in re-signing with London or not. And the side that held that option was the players. So essentially the management is sitting there saying, hey, we do want these guys to play. Here is the terms of your new contract. Do you accept it or not? So even though they were not dropped, their contract came to an end, and they have the chance of renegotiating right now, which seems to be going on at the current moment. And rightfully so. If you're a London Royal Ravens fan, you heard that news and you were probably a bit tilted about, well, what do you mean Wuskin and Skrapz are not going to be back next year? These two in specific were two of the best players in the Call of Duty League last year. Wuskin held the 3rd overall best kill-death ratio in the entire league, just behind Octane and Skies. Again, showing that his main AR prowess was absolutely up there. Skrapz, on the other hand, did very well himself, finishing in the top 30 overall for his kill-death ratio, and played a very pivotal role in coming through and picking up the second AR after the meta swap was going on. That's good news. All of that stuff is good for Skrapz and Wuskin. The bad news is, if London does not find a way to get on board with Wuskin and Skrapz and bring them on for the 2021 season, what the hell do you do next if you're the London Royal Ravens? Again, the top 4 finish, and we have no idea what's going on with the other players on the team. We heard a little bit of cryptic tweets coming from Trey, or Zero, of course, you might know him by, when it comes to what is his future going to entail. And you have to remember that for Zero, he came from the New York Subliners midway through the year, so his terms of his contract with London are probably on a shorter stipend than Wuskin or Skrapz, who've been here since the beginning of the year. And speaking of been there since the beginning of the year, what's going on with Dylan? We haven't heard a single peep out of the star SMG player, at least from the Black Ops 4 year he was a star, maybe not so much this last year, but these are players that you feel like you really need to lock in for the upcoming season. You do not want to be going out there and pulling a Toronto or a Paris where you're essentially picking up the scraps of whoever else is left out there to try to formulate a team. That's just not a stable spot to be at. You don't want to be in that position whatsoever. So a lot of questions as far as what's going on in London. But again, just to re-hit it one more time, for Skrapz and Wuskin, they are allowed to explore other options, also known for me as the renegotiation period, in which they can negotiate for better deals or negotiate with other teams to potentially be picked up there. What we also do not know is that players like Zero and players like Dylan and players like Shawnee have been pretty quiet. Zero, I think, is probably on thinner ice than most because the fact that he did come from the New York Subliners, so who knows what his contract looks like and how invested are the London Royal Ravens into keeping him around. The only only big thing we do know about the London Royal Ravens is what's going on with Jerd. Of course, he started the year with the starting roster and then was put on the bench in favor of Zero halfway through the year. He has officially listed that he is in fact an unrestricted free agent, which essentially means that London is not pursuing options to keep him on board for next year. So Jerd will be in the free agency market, and that is the update as far as what's going on in London. A lot of things coming forward, a lot of things to consider. Beyond that, though, coming forward this weekend, I've gotten some hits as far as what potentially has already happened that nobody is talking about yet when it comes to more surprising moves in the 2021 year coming up for the CDL. So you do not want to miss it. I will give you a little bit of a clue. It has to deal with players like Dashi, Arcides, and possibly Priesta. A lot of things to talk about. We're just going to let that sit and fester for now, but make sure if you want more content like this in the offseason, you subscribe right here to the channel, like the video, and then till the next time, we hope that you keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.